Good evening, everybody. This is going to be a nice, friendly audience, I can tell. I came to this session, I think it was 2 accessibility meetups ago, and I wasn't expecting to be invited to speak so quickly, but yeah, thank you, Alistair. It's been great to be here. So my name's Hector Minto, for those of you that haven't met me before. I work as an accessibility show-off in Europe for Microsoft, is probably the best way to describe it. And it's accessibility internal and external. There's a lot of work for us to do to make sure that people outside of Microsoft learn about all the features that we've got landing in Office, Windows, across our product range right now. But actually, there's just as much work to do inside Microsoft. Because those people inside Microsoft who are designing technology inside the workplace, who are making sure that the workplace is usable for the mainstream, needs to know that accessibility is a subject, and accessibility is a subject that Microsoft takes extremely seriously. So we need them to represent the good work that's happening in Redmond and across the world. So my role is essentially to engage with teams inside Microsoft, tell them why it's important to their customer, and make sure that they go and learn about it. And one of the easiest ways we do that is by mandating accessibility training across Microsoft. And this is something that's ongoing, but essentially what we want to do is make sure that everybody understands that one of our core cultural values at Microsoft is usability and accessibility. Let me just start by saying I'm in PowerPoint. I'm in Office 365, and the beautiful, lovely, engaging, amazing Orla, who's behind the screen back there, at this point starts writing rude things about me on the captioning. But what I'm going to show you is how we can get captioning into every single meeting. Yeah, for those who can't see that, she said rude things about me never. No, she hasn't actually. One of the things with accessibility is making it important to everybody. And when we go to an accessibility meeting full of accessibility professionals and we say, hey, we've got captions, all we're doing is saying, we think that's a good thing to do. But fundamentally, we know that this doesn't land in every meeting. This doesn't go into every workplace. And people don't pay for the beautiful, wonderful, engaging Orla to attend every event to make sure that it is accessible. We kind of tend to tick box accessibility and say, here's a special solution for a special audience. And one of the things that Microsoft are trying to do is get rid of that and remove that special process and just make it completely routine to have captioning wherever we go. And so within Office 365 now, we have here, I'll stop the subtitles and I'll restart them, a plugin at the moment for PowerPoint that allows me to start subtitling from the cloud. So using artificial intelligence to listen to my voice and give subtitles. Okay, so that's really useful. That's something that hopefully people will start to understand as a useful thing to have on in their meeting, but will they do it? Will they turn the subtitles on if it's for the odd occasion where somebody who's deaf or hard of hearing is in the office or in the meeting, if they even know that that person is deaf or hard of hearing? Probably not. So actually what we're trying to do is actually say there are wider wins within this. So what you'll see after I get it going is you'll see the subtitles, but you'll see it also generates a QR code so that anybody who doesn't have English as a first language can follow along to my speech in their natural language. So they can have this in Bangla on their phone. They can have this in French or Russian. They can have this in Portuguese. And we're widening that list of languages out now. We're up to about 60 different languages. What you'll see is a certain level of accuracy. And I won't be as good as Orla. I won't. And that's good. Yet now. But at some point, because this is artificial intelligence, and the real theme of my talk tonight is artificial intelligence, we know this is going to get better and better and better. What I will tell you is that this is usable. This is really usable. I have used this with, I was talking to a group of Erasmus project leaders recently at a college in Gloucester, and there was somebody from Finland, somebody from Greece, and somebody from, where was it? Finland, Greece, and I can't remember the third one. And they followed along on their phones. And the most telling comment they made to me about having it in their own language was, we would have sent somebody different to this meeting if we'd known. And I sat there and I thought, wow, think about that. they're sending the person who has the least disability in that situation, the person with the best English, to go to England and listen to that presentation. But they might not be sending the subject matter expert or the person who it really matters to because they went on the person with the best English. If we can get subtitles and translation up to a level where it's completely usable, actually we're going to just have much more effective meetings. The other thing that's really important here is that this is savable. I can save this at the end. I can share this, or even if I'm not pleased with the accuracy, I can still go to it afterwards and do two things. I can write up my minutes for the meeting and send it out and just do the quick edits. So most of the work's been done for me. So it's a productivity feature then. The second thing I can do is I can go back, correct it. I'm just going to escape out. I can correct it for errors. And the next time that I run it, I can post it into my notes within PowerPoint. And the next time I start my subtitles, I can ask it to customize the speech recognition. What that means is I can put the words that it really should have got right, like Barclays or Canary Wharf, or the things that maybe it didn't get first time round, and those will then go into the subtitles next time round because we've changed the model. We've changed the model of translation. Okay? And that, to me, is a perfect example of where we're going with artificial intelligence. Yes, it's a key accessibility win. And actually, that's been the real driver for a lot of this work to get it into PowerPoint straight away. This has given us the reason to get into a product as mainstream as PowerPoint. But actually, the productivity wins in terms of language translation and saving the minutes at the end of every meeting is probably the way we can get this to be most usable within enterprise, within business, within the workplace, and within education. I'm not going to turn it on, so I'm just going to let Orla do her thing, much better than it can do today, but let's carry on. So, we're all interested in the topic of accessibility, but I just thought I'd kind of tease a conversation for today. But has the human experience of accessibility and asking humans to solve this problem really seen significant change in accessibility? Are we a more accessible web than we were 10 years ago? We'd say that there's a much higher volume of websites, but as a percentage, are more accessible, are more usable. I don't know. Well, I mean, there are figures on it, and it suggests we're going backwards. But actually, if you see what we're doing with artificial intelligence now, is a good mix of accessibility experts and artificial intelligence the way forward to really get to fantastic accessibility. The way that we promote accessibility inside Microsoft is threefold. We use this slide a lot. This says, disability is not a personal health condition. Disability is a mismatch between you, or a mismatch in human interactions. It's a mismatch between you and what you're trying to do. So when we're trying to say this is important, when we say this is for people who are blind, or this is for people who are hard of hearing, if you don't know somebody who's blind or hard of hearing, you kind of don't care. But if we say that your product is unusable, people do care. So this is a great way for us to frame usability and accessibility to our product teams. The next one that we promote, before I get on to showing you lots of the features, is that we think of disability in three forms. We think of it as permanent, as temporary, and as situational. You'll see here, we've got pictures here of somebody with an upper limb amputation, a one-handed person, a one-armed person. We've got somebody who's broken their arm temporarily, and we've got somebody who's holding their child. As far as we're concerned, they all face exactly the same problem. But in America every year, there are only 13,000 people who lose an arm. 26,000. 26,000 people lose an arm. 13 million people break their arm in America every year, I heard. I'm not sure I believe that, but we'll go with it. And there are countless people holding their child at any one point. How many people in this room of accessibility experts who haven't heard this talk before know what the solution for somebody who's using one hand is on a Windows PC? How many people could offer that information? What would you recommend for somebody who has lost their limb in terms of their typing experience on a PC? Voice is actually a really, I think that's a great answer, and one where it's going. But what about the feature that's been there since 1995? Sticky keys, thank you. Sticky keys is on every single Windows computer if you hit the Shift key 5 times. And it basically means I can do Shift, then the letter, caps, then the letter. Yeah? It allows for one key, then the other, as opposed to stretching and doing both keys. The reality is, even in a room of accessibility people, you don't know this. And that's fine. But it shows a huge failing on our part in terms of promoting these features. Could artificial intelligence in the future notice when you're typing in a different way to the way you've been typing for the last 3 years and go, have you broken your arm? And turn sticky keys on for you? 100% it can. Yep. And that's really what I'd like to talk about today. Artificial intelligence should be offering us options for accessibility, not making us find a feature that we will never find, or at the very least, it should give us an easy way to find what we're looking for. You can't solve an issue that you don't know there's an answer to. Yeah? If you don't know where to look, you'll never find it. And the sticky keys, I talk about sticky keys about 10 times a week, because people just don't know it's there, and it's crazy. Because actually, if you think about the workplace, and all the reasons why you wouldn't employ somebody who's got an upper limb amputation if you were one of those HR people. Yeah? Oh, this is going to be too difficult for you to fit into the workplace. Well, you wouldn't think about that if somebody broke their arm, saying, well, don't come in for 6 weeks. Yeah? You would send them into work. And if we knew it was as simple as press sticky keys, turn sticky keys on, then when you do interview somebody who has got one arm, you go, well, hang on, it's the same issue. It was easy for John when he broke his arm, so why don't I employ this person? And that's what we've got to solve. We've got to make it so that people find features for their own use and then think about applying it to the permanent disability model. We all know that zooming on a phone is a pinch. Is that a disability setting? Yeah, if you think about it that way, but not really. It's just a usability, inclusive usability feature. Okay, and the third thing that's really important when we talk to groups of people within Microsoft and externally is this, that 70% of people with disabilities are invisible and not going to tell you that they have a disability. So how can you even turn a feature on if you don't know somebody wants it? It's impossible. But maybe the computer can work that out for you, right? Maybe your experience on a PC or your changing experience or your profiling on your PC will actually offer you solutions in the future. So this is not a talk about flashing wheelchair special needs settings. This is a talk about inclusive features that are going to present themselves to the mainstream that will hopefully be applied to people with disabilities just as easily. Okay? But before I get there, I will start with the Ease of Access Center in Windows 10. We are investing significantly in the disability settings within Windows because they've changed. The features that you needed 10 years ago are not the features that you would need nowadays, or the options have changed. We didn't have touchscreens before on our PCs. We now, within Windows 10, offer full eye control. If we've got somebody with severe physical disability, you can buy a £150 eye tracker from Toby and plug it into a Windows 10 PC, unlock the eye control setting within Windows, standard on Windows, and use your computer with just your eyes. That would be useful for somebody with severe arthritis in the workplace. That would be useful for people who use voice most of the time, but actually there's an occasion when their voice control lets them down. So they've got a backup plan of their voice. Because at £150 and included in Windows, hopefully more people will find that that's an option. We also have bitmap smoothing on magnification. So as I magnify up through Windows, Windows key plus, Windows key minus, magnify up, magnify down, it smooths out all of the graphics so that it's a pleasant experience to magnify as standard on Windows now. We have colorblind filters. Who's on social media? I mean, anybody who turns up at a Meetup is on social media, I hope, right? Okay, so I normally get about 90,000 impressions a month. I'm looking at, Neil Milliken's not in the room from Access Chat. He gets like, 10 times that. I'm pretty happy with that now. But the minute I started talking about color blindness in the disability world, it went crazy for a month. I ended up with 250,000 impressions just on color blindness. But how many of us think of color blindness as an accessibility setting? I mean, in a usability thing, yeah, we'll think about colors. But how many of us are thinking about changing our Windows environment for color blindness? How many of us buy the specialist software? It's actually pretty small, we think. But it's still got all these different impressions. So there was clearly an audience out there who felt, now that it's there and on board, yeah, let's try it out. We also introduced quiet time and reduced animation, and we offer Braille support as a beta, so you can plug in a Braille reader and get alerts from Windows and use Windows with Braille. And that's great. But I don't want to talk about this tonight. I want to actually talk about artificial intelligence. And I think you as an audience really want to think about artificial intelligence. I know we do. In the accessibility world, we looked at artificial intelligence and we thought, artificial intelligence is really something bridging the gap between me and what I'm trying to do. So if I'm disorganized, artificial intelligence helps me. Of course it does. In Cortana now, Cortana will remind me that I wrote in an email that I would send a file to you and remind me to do it because it read my email and said, well, you made a commitment. And then it reminds me half an hour before I said I would make that, do that and remind me. Is that a disability setting? Yeah. So it is. If you've got memory loss or short-term memory problems, then of course that's a thing. Yeah. Satya is saying from the top of Microsoft, in the book, which is one of the prizes tonight, so you can read the full excerpt there, we want to build intelligence that augments human abilities and experiences. Rather than thinking in terms of human versus machine, we want to focus on how human gifts such as creativity, empathy, emotion, physicality, and insight can be mixed with powerful AI computation to help move society forward. I read that and just think accessibility. I read that and think AI will finally be the thing that just gives somebody with a disability the extra information they need to bridge the gap and remove that mismatch between them and the human interaction. So let's talk about a few of these. So how many people in the room are website accessibility professionals? And keep your hands up, if you please, and be honest, please. How many of you make your PowerPoint documents accessible? And thank you. All right, so I won't go any further than that. Why do we think that making a website consumable information accessible is a thing, but we don't think in this cloud-connected world, cloud file sharing world, that the same information presented in PowerPoint shouldn't equally be accessible? Or do we not know it's a thing? Maybe that's what it is. Maybe we spent so much time learning that web accessibility is a thing, we've forgotten about document accessibility. And that's the bit that we're really focusing on right now, because Microsoft and Office is documents. Making your documents accessible has been around and will be on all of your computers when you go into work tomorrow, assuming some of you are going into work tomorrow. So if you, even in the old versions, file, inspect document, check for accessibility would do two things. It would look for labels behind images, you all know what that is, and it would look for scan order. Because scan order in a Word file is just as important as scan order in a website. But because it was hidden, file, inspect document, and nobody knew it was a thing, no one finds it. The new version of that, we have put the check accessibility next to spell checker in Word, in Office. And global usage has gone up 500%. So 5 times more people check their documents today for accessibility than ever did before. The simplest thing we did was change the button location. That's not artificial intelligence. But what we can also do there, within Word and with PowerPoint, is have machine learning, AI-generated alt text. If I drop an image, and I've put an image here on this slide, and we will be showing these slides afterwards, but I've put a picture of a bear climbing a tree, and the internet, or machine learning, has said a brown bear standing next to a forest. So our accessibility, and it says also image described with high confidence. So machine learning, artificial intelligence, has given me some extra accessibility that I, as an author, didn't ask for. I, as an author who didn't even know that alt text was a thing, it has offered it. And below it, it says, how would you describe this image for somebody who's blind or has low vision? So more people will learn what alt text is just through this appearing. And it appears the minute you drop a picture into Office 365 with a black bar underneath that gives a description. So if you drop a picture of Donald Trump into your PowerPoint presentation and it says, a man wearing a suit and tie, 80% of people will look at that and say, that's not a man wearing a suit and tie. That's not the message I'm trying to get across, and put in whatever the caption they want to for Donald Trump in their presentation. Yep. More people will learn about alt text because of artificial intelligence than any training course that we could have provided. That's how powerful this can be. The icons that are also the second image here, so there's a whole library of icons in Office. They all have human-generated alt text behind them as standard. So we keep more accessibility by using the standard icons that are in Office. The accessibility checker, as I said, is there. In terms of requesting accessible content, you know in your mail tips when you're out of the office and you start writing an email to somebody and it says they're away, before you hit send, you might want to know that they're off on annual leave. You can also ask that same message to request accessible content and hyperlink to the accessibility checker. So you can ask for accessible content if you want it. And why wouldn't you all ask for accessible content when you go back to work tomorrow? Don't you want to be able to share that with anybody when it gets sent to you? The other thing that's really interesting is that the links in Office are also using artificial intelligence so that they give sensible descriptions. Nobody who uses a screen reader wants to read http://www.da-da-da-da-da. What they want is a nice description of what that link is. And using artificial intelligence, when you click a link in Office now, it will give you nice descriptions for your web links and your files. Okay? So these are just things that are already in Office 365 that use AI to make things more natively accessible. And there's more. Read aloud in Word, Edge, and OneNote. If I save this PowerPoint as a PDF and open it up in Edge, I can right-click on it, which is the image on the bottom left here, and ask it to read aloud. And it will just read aloud any website as standard, or any PDF as standard, with highlighting. Who's the highlighting for? People with dyslexia really need words highlighted, because for many people with dyslexia, it's an eye-tracking issue. We really want their eyes to follow the text as it's being spoken out. Or people who are learning English as a second language, or not just English as a second language, this works across all languages, or all languages that work with it. I'm not going to be caught out on languages when I go into the beer break. But that feature means that everyone just knows that things are readable. I use this all the time. Yeah? Rather than go to the BBC website and read the news, I just click play, and then I go off and write an email, and I listen to websites just as much as I read websites now. I've got used to it. I miss it if it's not available. The people who then like that feature for their own reason will again start to show it to people who are blind, have low vision, and make that feature more available. We have Microsoft Stream, which is our workplace video repository. We're using artificial intelligence to transcribe all video in Microsoft in-house video. Now, this is fantastic. It means that there's always subtitles on every video that we upload. Yeah? They're just there, as long as you didn't say, no, I don't want them. And we will ask people that. We will say, do you want to turn this off? Yeah? And then make them turn it off. You've got to think what kind of person you are to turn that off, I have to ask. Once those transcriptions are there, you no longer search for video by title. I can search for video by words used within that video. So before I came to Barclays to meet the Barclays account team here, I did a search across the whole Microsoft video repository and searched for videos that included the word Barclays in the script. So it was amazing for my usability, but it's also accessible for people who need the captions. You can now check a Word document using artificial intelligence for gender discrimination, race discrimination, and disability discrimination. It's a setting that you just turn on in the grammar options. You can read aloud in OneNote and have words split into synonyms, making it more readable for somebody who's learning English or for somebody who's dyslexic. Again, this is artificial intelligence at play. OK, next bit, translation. How many people use a translation app when they go abroad nowadays? Quick show of hands. Let's say that's about 30%. How many of you use one that uses artificial intelligence? So take a look at Microsoft Translator. The exact same device, the exact same feature that we have in PowerPoint is available as a standalone app for translation. You should all want to use that. But what about people who are deaf? What about using it as a live captioning tool in every interaction with somebody who's deaf and has good literacy? I do. If I want to speak to somebody, or I'll be honest, I've been working in the field of assistive technology for 20 years, and I would not speak to somebody who used sign language because I knew it was difficult. It's just an awkward conversation, yeah? And unless there's somebody there with them. So I certainly wouldn't go and approach somebody who was just on their own. So I now, or two people using sign language, now, and I'm sure I've annoyed a few people along the way, I walk up to them and I just speak into my phone and have live subtitles. And the general reaction is, wow, I didn't know that existed. And then you say, well, what is it? It's just a translation app. But the translation app is just the same for me translating into French as it is from my voice into English. Yeah? It just means that every interaction has those text subtitles. And I can tell you, the type of conversations I've had have been amazing. Really, really fascinating. I also use it with Uber drivers who don't speak English. Yeah? And I've had some really interesting conversations there as well. OK, so this concept of translation is everywhere. But I would say that your job, as people who are interested in accessibility, is to frame that product around disability. For everybody that uses a translation app, let's ask them to remember people who use sign language and speak and get those subtitles everywhere. If we make subtitles pervasive, so that everybody just knows that the way to interact with somebody who's deaf is to maybe try first with a translation app and speaking into it, the more we will break down that stigma of not engaging and not communicating and not interacting. OK, artificial intelligence design of PowerPoint. You can now put a picture into PowerPoint, put a title or some words in, and artificial intelligence will say, do you want it to look like this? And that's a slide that I would never have created. I would never have created anything as beautiful as that. I've got a picture here of the mountains, the lake, and a nice circle, and a nice bit of opacity put into the circle, so I've got a really nice design. OK, now let's frame that around disability once again. If you have a physical disability, are you going to take the time to create beautiful slides like that by using eye gaze, or like Stephen Hawking with your switches to control your mouse? You're absolutely never going to do that. But if artificial intelligence is doing it for you, when you go into that meeting at work, you're presenting materials that are just as professional as everybody else's. And that's important. OK? So again, it's this concept of framing it around disability. If you're blind, how do you create beautiful-looking slides? Or do you just create functional slides? And how does that present you professionally? Don't you want to go, use AI, choose first option, and trust that Office has created something beautiful for you? OK. Natural language. We're all looking at things like Siri and Cortana and this concept of using natural language to get information out. And it's in Office. So if you press Alt-Q in Office, it brings up Tell Me. It's also there on the ribbon. And then you can use natural language to find the setting you're looking for. So if you don't know what it's called, you can just use your best guess, and it will use artificial intelligence to work out what you were going for and make recommendations for you. It will also do definitions of words. You can just type words in Tell Me, and it will give you definitions straight in your software without you going anywhere else to look for it. I've talked about Cortana commitments. There's also a Cortana dictation plugin. And the accuracy that we're achieving with Cortana on voice recognition is incredible. We're now at, I think, 5.1% in accuracy on Cortana for voice recognition. So we're looking at something that's going to be increasingly accurate for typing, which will actually mean more people in the mainstream will start to use it because they can trust it more. OK, cognitive services. When we think about Azure and moving into the cloud, Microsoft has a cognitive services API. So any developers in the room or any app developers in the room can access Microsoft Cognitive Services. That's what's inside the translator app. You can use these features. But one of the things that we want to do at Microsoft is push the assistive technology market even further. There are things that are missing, and cognitive services is one of them. So when we think of screen readers today, screen readers are unable to read something that's inaccessible. It doesn't have a description behind it. So it can't read an image that hasn't got a description. But cognitive services can. You can now, within Narrator, so you can just kind of pause your existing screen reader for a minute, turn Narrator on quickly, and do Caps Lock Shift D, and it will go to the web, it will go to the internet, and it will get you a definition of, it will get you a description of your image. So even if you just use Narrator for that, it will allow you description of images that have not been made accessible. It also pulls text from memes. So suddenly, the world of memes are open to people who are blind or have low vision. You haven't missed a thing, I have to say at this point. So it will say, fetching image description, Thomas Jefferson here, and I've got a picture of Thomas Jefferson. OK, they're good for Trump, right? Good for your Trump memes. You'll enjoy those. OK, so hopefully what I've been able to show you is a number of different things that are there and that are just built in and haven't really been disability features. Hopefully everybody in the room has thought, oh yeah, that's kind of nice, that's a nice feature. But people with disabilities should be sitting there thinking, wow, This is really powerful, and that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to say, if we can engage the mainstream to know that great accessibility is just great usability and great features are just great features, but then to consider people with disabilities, then we'll drive the usage of these features and make them more commonplace across many different types of software. I've already hinted as well about this concept of changing the social dynamic, and so I'm going to switch to my iPhone now, and I'm going to talk about. Well, I've already talked about one, but let's show it in action. I'm talking about 3 apps that are amazing artificial intelligence apps. But what I'd like you to think about as we talk is, and please shout out and comment, is about this concept of a social dynamic. Let me just switch to my phone. OK. How many people have heard about seeing AI so far? Only a few, which is great, which means this should be wow. Yeah, hopefully this is a real wow moment. OK. Seeing AI is an app that was developed with a guy called Saqib Sheikh, who lives in London. He's available for speaking engagements. He's actually pretty amazing. And actually, he'd be a great presenter actually for a future. He's a software developer and project team leader at Microsoft. He's blind. There is an incredible video of him coding at a massive Microsoft conference using Visual Studio as a blind person and creating code and writing code live in front of people. And it's a great way to show capability. There's no reason why somebody who's blind can't write amazing code. And Saqib worked with Satya and actually pitched to Satya for Seeing AI a few years ago because he could see what was happening with artificial intelligence. Seeing AI is an app. Where's David Caldwell? Can you come to the front, please, David?
Person.
Seeing AI here is an app that uses multiple features of artificial intelligence to narrate the world for people who are blind or have low vision. I'll say at this point as well that it's free. So, there's no cost involved for this. So there's no reason for you not to download it. It has face recognition built in, which means that I can scan the room here. And
one face near left, 0. One face near left edge, 0 faces.
OK, we're a little bit far away. It's catching some faces,
one face near 0 faces.
But it's not describing. But when I turn it to David, who's my guinea pig for this evening, my Debbie McGee, if you like. Everyone knows who Debbie McGee is again, which is great. And if I point it to David,
David C near top edge.
It says David C near top edge. It recognizes David. Thank you, David. How does that change the social dynamic? Well, it invades everyone's privacy. All right, well, maybe. He did give me permission. I will say that at this point, yeah? So he said that I was allowed to name him. So you have to go through that process first. But David, if I walk into a meeting, there are a certain proportion of people who will walk the other way when somebody walks in with a cane. We have tested this. I had a great Addy who was at this last time. He worked with me at Future Decoded, and he said the minute he put his cane away, more people spoke to him than when he had his cane there. And that's unfortunately human nature right now. Let's hope it's not human nature in 100 years' time. Yeah? But the point is if you have the option to walk away, some people will take the option to walk away. Some people will avoid the awkward. And we've got to stop this. And artificial intelligence allows somebody who's blind to walk into the work cafeteria, see which ones of their teammates are at the table, and take the lead on the conversation. Now, that changes social dynamic. That does 2 things. That empowers the person who's blind in that situation. It also accelerates the removal of the awkwardness in that other person's human development. Yeah? It means that they're going to be forced to get over this pretty damn quick, because the blind person's now walking up to them with their hand stretched open and saying, "Hi, it's Hector." Yeah? That is incredible. And that's artificial intelligence that's allowing that. We can also, if I can ask for another quick volunteer, a volunteer who's not easily offended, I'm looking for here, who can come on stage. Come on, Alistair, thank you. So, Alistair's walking up stage. Oh, we lost a bit of connection.
1 face near top, 1 face near center over 11 feet away.
And I'm going to take a picture.
Processing.
At which point it's going to go to the internet.
53-year-old man with red hair.
I'm so sorry.
Looking neutral.
OK, so the light thought you had red hair. I'm sorry about that. Oh, what's the 53-year-old man? I'm sorry about that. We could keep trying if it helps. It's normally me that's... Come a bit closer.
1 face near center 9 feet away. 1 face near center 5. Processing. 43-year-old
10 years.
brown hair wearing glasses looking neutral.
Pretty good?
Yep.
Are we factor of... Tiny bit, yeah, fine, good. Take the compliment, it's Christmas. Okay, great. So now we know who's in the room with us. Yeah, we know, we've got some idea of what they look like. I did speak to one of my colleagues, Anne, who's blind, and she went, "Why do I care what you look like?" And I just thought, what a great response, actually. That's actually a really great response. I mean, why should she really care? Okay, but the person channel is just one channel. Other typical channels are barcode reading. So if I just turn this bottle away, the barcode facing away, I can turn it round, and I'll get some audio when it recognizes there's a barcode coming into sight.
Processing. Not recognized.
And it tells me this one's not recognized, probably because it's a multi-pack barcode. Okay, you shouldn't drink that anyway. Okay, but that will essentially recognize objects in a growing library of products and give extra information, like it's one of your 5 a day or whatever it might be. We can actually get quite a lot of information into that barcode. Short text.
Short text.
Now, short text is not document scanning. Short text is text anywhere, on the fly. So I can now put this in front of my screen.
3 apps to change the social dynamic. Translator, CMAL, Office Lens.
And it reads my slides for me. Which means that any text that you're given that's not accessible to you suddenly becomes accessible. And it's good at reading text. But the magic starts in the latest update, even for those people that know about it but maybe haven't heard about this, is that we have handwriting recognition now. So David, my volunteer, my Debbie McGee, wrote with his lovely handwriting here, and?
Processing. Barclays High. Welcome to the December London Accessibility Get to Respect Integrity Service Excellence Stewardship.
You have to read the Barclays mantra at the bottom. But it reads my handwriting. There are videos on YouTube now of people reading Christmas cards with Seeing AI. Handwriting is accessible. Handwriting, the most inaccessible of formats for most of us, is now accessible to a blind or have low vision. We can also do light. So it will give tones. Why is that useful? Fire, not fire, might be. The classic examples we've been given so far is to know whether power is on your adapters, on your power adapters and things like that, or to know that your screen is at a certain brightness and all sorts. We're going to find what these use cases are. It also does color recognition.
Color preview, gray, white, gray, blue and white, black, white.
Yep, which means that now you can go and do your laundry. Yep,
Right.
it will actually describe color to us.
Right.
It will also do scene recognition and currency. Oh, let's do currency. Oh, throwing it around.
£10.
You know these have got dots on them now.
£5.
It will recognize my currency for me. Essentially, artificial intelligence is being delivered in various channels to describe the world for somebody who needs it. Is this a blind app or an app for people who are blind? Well, do you know what? If I worked in tech right now, I'd have this just to show what AI is doing, like what AI can do. But let's look at the document channel. Let's just find some text again. The same app allows me to scan,
Left edge is not visible.
and it will tell me
Hold steady.
that the document is in place, and it will scan the document. This bit does require internet access. The instant text reading channel does not. It will get there. And when it does, it will read with highlighting, the same way that Edge does.
Timed out.
No request.
Please try again in a
Okay,
few moments.
but it will read the document out, and it will read it with highlighting. So again, we're looking at people who have dyslexia, or who have English as additional language, who might just find this app as the solution that helps them. So two things. Great example of where AI is today. It's free, you can all download it, but please maintain this concept, and please think about this concept of social dynamics. If you've always got to ask somebody to do something for you, there is learnt dependence. The children of tomorrow, using AI, will maybe learn less dependence on others and maybe more dependent on tech to allow them to lead more independent lives. And I think that's an interesting thing for us to talk about, an interesting conversation for us to have, especially in these days of AI is going to remove all of us from our jobs. Let's think about what are the positive elements of AI that we can deliver. Okay, the third one, Office Lens. How many people have taken a photo of my slides today? Oh, thanks for the endorsement. Only like 10. All right. How many of you used your default photo app? Yeah. How many people used anything else other than their default photo app? Not a single person. Okay. Here is Whiteboard Mode in Seeing AI. In Office Lens. You can see it automatically crops to my whiteboard, and I can then take a photo. Nope. In fact, I should have done it on this one. Let's do it on this one. So I'm just taking a photo here. I'm say done. Oh, let's add one. So straight away, using this app will just make your photos look nicer, yeah, and more consumable later on. If I just go whiteboard here. But you'll also see here, I can see the text here. That text can immediately be saved back to OneNote or back to OneDrive and be searchable by text. So it's just much more usable, because I honestly I hate to tell you, 99% of the photos you take at events, you never look at ever again. Whereas actually, if you were looking for the text, you might go back and look at those sorts of things. If we go into the immersive reader within this and save, rather than sending to OneNote here, OneDrive, save a PDF, send it to Word, send it to PowerPoint, there is an option here to save to your immersive reader, which is iPhone only right now. And what that does is it analyzes my text and, again, reads it out loud to me, which means that somebody who's blind or somebody who has dyslexia can sit at any event, scan the text on slides, scan the text on documents with an earphone in a meeting and have it read aloud to them so that they keep pace with the meeting notes. Okay. Do you remember I said that 70% of disability was invisible? The more we go out and talk about this and have these talks, the more people will share they have difficulty consuming text. I know this because of the corporate engagements we've had so far. We have got customers who are reporting huge increases of people coming forward and saying that they need stuff like this because it's built in and it's readily available and it's just on the system. If we do that, and you think back to the temporary, situational, permanent disability issue, the more people who are happy to share that this helps them, happy to share that this will be useful to them, the more the message will get through to people who have the permanent disabilities and need those settings on a daily basis. You can see here's the text and here's the read aloud.
Look at your OEACNFFLT. Crops to my whiteboard and can then take a photo. In fact, we'll show have it over.
Okay, I don't know what this is. This is one of those other things. Okay, right. Let me just jump back to my slides to finish off. So I just wanted to finish off with kind of what might the future hold. And these are not Microsoft roadmaps. This is me musing with you. But this concept of personalized recommended settings, I really like the idea of it. And I think it's completely achievable. If you are doing this a lot on your web pages, or Control Plus, or Windows Plus, or Control Plus to magnify a lot, or rather Control Plus to zoom the text in on websites, why doesn't your computer say, hey, are you having difficulty seeing this? And make further recommendations in terms of color contrast, in terms of high vision settings, to make sure that people see the settings that are useful to them. I think AI can absolutely do this. Are we seeing crowdsourced image description? Yes. So we can have it so that if we change the descriptions in PowerPoint, that feeds into the description of what that is. The reason that AI knows what a £5, £10 note is that free apps were given out where you just kind of had to say yes when you saw a £5 note or not, that were used as kind of dog food apps within Microsoft. Yeah? So we were feeding the AI, but that AI can be fed more and more and more if we get people using these features within their product, which means we have more accurate image description and better AI. Can we look forward to accessibility error checking on the go? So as you code a website or as you design a document, can it actually warn you up front, hey, this might not be accessible, rather than you being forced to check it? The one I really love the idea of is, can we have eye-guided magnification? You plug an eye tracker into this PC, it knows where your eyes are pointing, but it doesn't know that you're seeing it. But why wouldn't it, if you dwelled longer, why wouldn't it just magnify and blow it up for you a little bit so you could see it? 100% easy to do. Yeah, we just haven't seen it yet. And for those of you from my world and the disability world of communication, so people who lose their ability to speak, could we have self-programming communication aids for people that don't speak? In the world today, we sit there with huge numbers of people losing their voice through strokes, through motor neuron disease, through cerebral palsy where they're born without speech or never develop speech. And we're reliant on therapists to create their vocabularies for them. Why? You know, surely we know the words I used in this room tonight and the words that everyone should be repeating afterwards, which would make it easier for somebody to communicate via a computer. Yeah? And I genuinely think this is on its way. So let's be ambitious for accessibility. Let's help mainstream developers understand the big world issues by framing it around accessibility, and let's move forward. I'm happy to take any questions, although I think I've run over. I'm sorry.
Got 5 minutes.
Okay.
I mean, go a bit if you want. Anyone got any questions?
I think something you keep referring to is the relationship model of disability, e.g. that it's a combination of environment, a badly designed environment and an impairment resulting in disability. You've mentioned a lot about machine learning, although you keep calling it AI, but I think that's marketing, you know, just lying to people slightly. Machine learning requires observations of users. If my computer said to me, "Oh, you're zooming in on lots recently," I'd be creeped out that it was watching me. So what are you using to protect privacy is the first question. The second question would be that I've done machine learning work. The problem that it has is signal-to-noise ratio. There are generally very few, let's say, impaired users. So do we not get into the position where the machine learning learns the biases that the rest of society has? How do we prevent that from happening?
Yeah, although I'm here talking about artificial intelligence, I'm not the expert on artificial intelligence, that's clear. There are some blogs where this exact topic is taken on. If you go to the Inclusive Design website, you'll see there's a blog on how do we prevent bias in artificial intelligence. I think it's a really big issue. All I can tell you is that there are definitely people at Microsoft talking about this as we speak. I think, from my point of view, accessibility is a great motivator to start those conversations with people about their privacy. Now, there will be a certain, and if I look at the younger generation coming through, how they feel about privacy versus the older generation, that's going to be interesting to watch. How, if we think about people with disabilities, who will maybe consider their privacy versus the benefits outweighing it, I don't know. These are societal questions that are well above my level to talk about. But hopefully Microsoft is going to be, and is, if you look at any of the kind of the conversations that we're having, trying to be as transparent as open about what we're doing with artificial intelligence. I think that's as qualified as I am to answer that question.
So is this technology providing any more of a service than our eyes are already providing? Because to me, it seems to be only doing what you and I, who don't particularly have accessibility issues, can do. It's filling a need. It's not necessarily impeaching on privacy or digging into anything deeper than you and I can dig into. So my point is, if I can look at someone and see their face and look at that person and say, oh, this person is this or that, or their hair color is that, isn't this technology just doing that? Is it actually going any deeper?
Is it just
it's going into my home and looking in my kitchen. It's just saying this is what this person would see if you were able to see like everyone else.
I mean, the seeing AI thing is interesting, isn't it? So you know, I had my Christmas present from another tech company through my photo bank recently, which gave me a video of the upbringing of my children. And at first, I was like in tears, thinking this is beautiful. And then the second thing, I had exactly the same reaction anybody would have, which was like, oh, hang on a minute. Like, who was looking at my photos to create that video? I don't know. It's a quandary for all of us to consider. I worry about it as much as anybody else does. It's at what point do we say the benefit, or as long as there are good policy, good guidelines, can we make sure the protection's there? Again, I'd be ill-advised to comment much further than that, but rather promote you through to our legal team to comment on this. But it's a great conversation. I definitely would say that. Can I just make one just small point on that? We could say the same about security. Now, how many companies are saying they will not put accessibility software on because of security or the way that their IT system is set up? How many people are saying they're not going to use these features because of security risks and all these sorts of things? what I love at the moment is that disability is opening up and driving really important conversations between those professionals to have this conversation, whereas otherwise, they're just not going to have that conversation. They're going to say security is king, and we're not going to talk about accessibility. When we show real benefit and real productivity across the masses, it's a much better way to raise the concept of accessibility and have that conversation in many forums.
I think for ever since the dawn of time, people who are disabled or have been disabled by the society they live in, or indeed by a condition that they might have medically, have been waiting for something like this to come along. And for ordinary people, or able-bodied people as other people might call them, for ordinary people to say, oh, I'm worried about my privacy, when the world of somebody who's spent, ever since the dawn of time, being discriminated against and challenged, the chance for them to suddenly have something that gives them that little bit more freedom is to be applauded, and I think it's fantastic.
But let's still have the conversation.
Oh, sure.
And it's a conversation that can happen with human impact, as opposed to just a conversation about, with positive human impact, and not just the negative side of it. I would contend. I have kids, and I just watch their attitude towards privacy is completely different to my parents' attitudes towards privacy, and I don't know. We're going to see how this goes, right?
Hi, yes, thank you very much. It's very, very exciting. Just kind of following on from some of those, I just wonder if you could clarify if you're going to kind of take the final step on some of those things like the subtitle on presentations, the accessibility checker, and so on, of enabling them by default.
It's a brilliant. I love this.
Rather than, as you started off by saying, that they have to be discovered.
Yep, and that's a brilliant. Exactly. I hope we get there. So, the real issue should be: should we turn them off once? Yeah, should we at least force people to turn it off once? I think that's where we'll go first, yeah, and then further. But no, I totally agree. I mean, one of the things about the subtitles in particular is the accuracy. So partly we don't want to turn them on fully, I would suggest, until they're not annoyingly inaccurate. Yeah, so it's a positive reinforcement for somebody who absolutely needs them, who's willing to put up with the inaccuracy. When we get to 99% accurate, I think we could maybe do things like that. Yeah, so I just think this is an evolution conversation and a confidence conversation. But until I come to events like this and arm you with the information of things that you didn't even know existed before, we're just going to have that conversation in-house.
Okay, we touched on privacy. Can I raise that there may be another issue here, which essentially is the question of patronizing? Is there a danger that AI can be seen as coming in there? I think I know a lot better what you need, because I'm a lot more intelligent than you are, and becoming entirely counterproductive. I look at your eye movement, and therefore I know what you need, rather than you coming back and saying, yes, this is what I need.
So the comment I would make on that, and I think, interesting. An interesting conversation. But I remember when I first got Windows as a boy, and one of the first things we did was personalized our experience, and then conformist design kicked in, so that we all basically used the design that was given to us. I don't think we personalize very much at all anymore, and that has maybe led to some of the issues of people not knowing that these are even options to personalize. The relationship with AI is an interesting one in my household. We have Alexa in my house, and I love my Alexa. I am the Microsoft guy telling you I love my Alexa. My kids love my Alexa. My wife absolutely hates Alexa. She hates it. And she hates it for two reasons. She cannot stand the inaccuracy. She's not willing to cope with it when it's wrong. Yeah? She's not willing to put up with that, whereas we are. And she sees it as exactly that, patronizing. But I don't, and my kids don't. And I just think this is a personal thing, and the masses will dictate what becomes normal, I think. Yep. But great question. I knew I'd get good questions tonight.
Two last questions, yep.
I've got a couple of rather more mundane questions. You showed an app for a long time, and I kept trying to work out what it was called and failed. So if you could tell me what it is. A more in-depth question is, you also showed the ability to turn voice into text, because that's a way of talking to people who are deaf.
Yep.
I've been talking to the deaf community, and a lot of them say they don't want text, they want sign language.
And a lot don't. And again, we will just put the tools out there. And there will be, there will be different countries who adopt different attitudes towards this. There will be different cultures around it. And we are hugely respectful of the deaf, the deaf culture issue there. Let me come back at you just briefly on that. In PowerPoint, you can record video in almost like with ease now, just by clicking a record button, clicks into your webcam and allows you to sign on video. And yet hardly anyone uses that feature that is there to promote and maintain that, exactly what you're talking about, allowing sign language to be pervasive in documents and there. So I think us sitting here and having a conversation about this today allows me to tell you that that feature exists as well, and when we will let the communities work out which features they want the most.
No, I was asking for something slightly different, which was for you to automatically generate sign language instead of text.
Yeah, so that is an AI thing, and that's a difficult AI thing, is what I'm hearing back. But there are definitely teams at Microsoft who are working on that as we speak. But the point still remains that to make sign language pervasive in documents is an option. We need more people to be showing this and knowing that it's available and using it to drive the demand elsewhere. Question?
What's the app called?
Seeing AI. Yeah, it's on here. So on here we've got Translator, Seeing AI, and Office Lens are the 3 apps that I would recommend you take a look at.
I want to pick up on one of the kind of other themes of your presentation, which was how we talk about the issues and how we get buy-in on the issues. And as someone who works in user research, a lot of my time is spent persuading teams to take things seriously. Now, I think it's really interesting, kind of the emphasis you put on this is so much easier to do when there is also a usability function. And when, the classic example of you put subtitles on a video, that helps everybody. We're still not doing it, but it helps everybody. So my question is, either what would be your advice in terms of selling, if you will, ideas that don't typically have this feature or a usability feature, or do you think that actually every feature does have this usability element, we just have to find it?
It's harder to sell some accessibility features as being more widely useful for everybody than others. Eye gaze, it would be one of those that people haven't realized the benefits of yet, but they're there. They're definitely there. There are definite wider use cases on most accessibility settings. Perhaps Braille support would be the one that's the most obvious niche there. How do we sell accessibility? Well, there's a human element and there's a technical element, I would say. So it's always interesting to kind of think about how people got to where they are. But most of the great people in the accessibility world that I've worked with who are not disabled themselves had early exposure to it, either in their work or in their school or in their family, and worked on a basis of presumed competence and real skills and abilities of people with disabilities and wanting to include them. Not through obligation, but through opportunity, is what I would say to you. And that's the bit we're trying to promote to people, is that actually, once you've got people with disabilities in your organization, you're going to have a better organization. You're going to have more diverse viewpoints. You're going to find the errors in your systems. And once you've decided that, you're going to basically have better product for absolutely everything. And so we need leadership. You need people like Satya at the top saying it. You need good role models with disabilities themselves who are champions themselves, like Saqib and Ann Taylor and Jenny Leigh-Fleury at Microsoft. And the only other thing I would say is about mandated training. So we have mandated training for all new hires right now on accessibility. That video, which is in the public domain, if you look up Microsoft Accessibility 101 training, and we can share it maybe afterwards with everyone, you'll see Jenny Leigh-Fleury talking to every Microsoft employee about how people are our colleagues, our friends, our families, how accessibility drives us, that people with disabilities are talented individuals within the organization. And then it's a group of people that you don't want to leave behind. The only other thing I would talk to you is like digital transformation in the 4th Industrial Revolution. There's a really good talk by Satya Nadella and Brad Smith on the cloud for global good, talking about how in every industrial revolution we leave disabled people behind and then spend a ton more money patching it afterwards. So there are leaders in Microsoft driving this conversation forward. Selling it, the slides I've shown you about kind of the invisible stuff, the 3 different types of disability, and the 101 training would be the things I would point you at, which are all freely available to you.
Brilliant.
Let me off.
Yep, no, thank you so much. Please put hands together. Thank you so much.